Okay, so I've never posted on here before, but I always read and love to comment on people's stories. Unfortunately, I quite recently had a very scary, more like terrifying, encounter. For some background information, I live in a small apartment complex right outside my campus with some friends. I am also a 20-year-old girl. So all my friends were always bashing on me for never meeting up with any boys or going. I had gotten sick of it. I didn't want to be the little friend who stayed home and ate pizza while my friends were out on dates with boys, so I signed up for Plenty of Fish. Now, I'm not the type of person who would say yes to any random stranger. They had to be nice looking, they had to have plenty of pictures of themselves, and we both had to have at least 2 common interests. So with those rules in my head, I psyched myself up to join the world of online dating. Within a few days, I already had 2 boys who I was talking to. One said he was a doctor, kind of hard to believe since he was 20. And one said he worked as a construction guy, which was easier to believe. I didn't like that the doctor guy was lying to me. But one day, as I was getting crap from my roommates, the construction guy, who we can call Dan, messaged me on the messaging app we were using and asked if I wanted to go out for a bite to eat. I told my roommates where I was going, and who I was with, all the things someone should do so someone knows if you've been abducted. I even had a check-in time so that when my roommate texted me if things were good, I had to say some silly code word that meant things were good. If I responded with another code word, it meant help me get out of this, and if I didn't use code words, then she should call the police for help. So I dolled myself up and got ready for my date. I put my hair up in a classy bun, leaving strips of it hanging down around my glasses. I put on a nice white blouse and some black pants, and I was ready to go. I jumped in my car and headed out to the restaurant where Dan had chosen. It was just out of my town, but it was only a 15-minute drive from my apartment. I arrived at the restaurant and saw him almost immediately. He was wearing nice clothes, and looked just like his photos. He was waiting just outside the restaurant doors for me. His eyes lit up when they saw me. He walked over to me and smiled. We chatted a little bit outside, since it was summer and not cold, and then walked outside. We ate dinner and talked about our life, and things like how school was going. I got the text from my friend, but since everything was good, I sent that code word back. Dan talked about how much he liked his job and things, and altogether it was pretty nice. Except for one thing. Dan was boring. He didn't do anything exciting or really talk enthusiastic about anything, and it was really boring. It was an average date, and honestly I didn't care to go on anymore. The next day I woke up to the feeling of my phone vibrating non-stop. I looked at it and realized it was vibrating so much that it had fallen off the dresser. I almost laughed. Then I saw that all the messages were from Dan. At first they were saying how much fun he had had, and that he would really like to go out again. But then the messages took a turn. They got violent, and angry I wasn't responding. It was 7 in the morning, I was sleeping. I noped out of that situation. I texted him back and told him I had been sleeping, and that no, I'm not going on any more dates with him. I was just about to block his profile on both sides when I got the finale message. Watch your back. At first I was really creeped out, but then I thought that since I had him blocked and all my accounts were deleted he could do nothing. Wrong. Later that day I saw a text from a random number, telling me how pretty I looked in my blue PJs. I glanced outside just in time to see none other than Dan running down my road. How the heck did he get my number, I thought wearily. I blocked that number and continued what I was doing. Later that night, I fell asleep pretty early, and woke up to my phone text alert going crazy. It was from the number I blocked just earlier that day. There were dozens of messages, saying I was going to get it. I quickly showed all my roommates the messages. They all told me that I should go to the police. But since I was a stupid person, I didn't. I blocked the number again and went back to sleep. But once again, I woke up to my phone buzzing. I didn't wait. I jumped in my car and drove all the way down to the police station. Once there, they told me they couldn't do much to help me and just told me to block the number. I did. At least I had it on record. Nothing happened for a few days. The number stayed blocked on my phone for a while, and then the pictures started. They were pictures of my house, of me in my house, my car, my work. I went back to the police, and finally I was able to get a restraining order against Dan. I never received any messages from Dan after that. I now never use dating websites. So Dan, let's hope we never meet again. If anyone has any tips on staying safer, please let me know. First time posting here. Although I have plenty of creeper stories, this is by far the most terrifying. I work for a major stationery brand, managing a pop-up store in my major city district. We are situated in the middle of a large shopping center and have an open plan layout, like most pop-up stores, which means people walk through freely. The brand I work for are all about giving the best customer service and going above and beyond the usual retail requirements to help out our customers. Being new and eager to show my loyalty, I made sure to follow this code with all customer interactions, which can be difficult in retail, but nonetheless I stuck to it. Now, the first time I met Eugene, he was wearing a very old black three-piece suit, red tie, and top hat with a feather. I am not kidding. I would put him at about the 75 to 85 age bracket. And on this day, he had gray hair and a walking stick to help him walk. This is important later. Being in work mode, I greeted him with a, "You're looking very snappy today. Are you going to a special event?" Or something to that idea. Now, something to keep in mind is that the center is filled with noise, and sometimes makes it hard to hear. I'm sure everyone's done that thing of when you heard what another person has said, you just laugh or nod rather than ask them to repeat. So when he replied quite softly, and I didn't hear what he said, I just nodded and smiled. This was the first mistake, because, determined from the conversations to follow, as well as other people's interactions, Eugene had actually asked me if I had been abused as a child. When I nodded for not hearing what he said, he assumed I was saying yes to his question, which opened up the opportunity for him to tell me all about his abusive childhood in great detail. Honestly, at the time I was too shocked and dedicated to staying a professional character that I just let him go on, and eventually he left. Over the next couple of weeks, he would continually come and discuss this issue with me, probing me for my own details as well as asking me when my lunch break is so he can have tea with me. Yes, looking at it now, it was creepy, but I just thought he was old and lonely, and I wasn't too bothered to give him his 10 minutes of ranting. However, things got weird. He came in one day completely beach blonde and wearing what I can only describe as young modern clothing. He still had his walking stick, which he still seemed to be heavily dependent on. When he came up to me on this particular day, instead of diving straight into memory lane, this conversation occurred.
"Do you have a boyfriend?"
"Hi Eugene, you're looking very summery today. What can I help you with?"
"I said, do you have a boyfriend?"
"I'm happily engaged, in fact, which is exciting. How about yourself?"
"Oh no, not me. I'm not interested in girls who haven't had the same life experience as me."
"Well, I'm sure you'll find someone, Eugene." At this point, he starts to get uncomfortably close to me. "Was there anything I could help you with?"
"I found you. Be with me. Can you marry me?"
"Oh, well, that's a lovely gesture, but I'm engaged. Thank you, though." I start to move away and pretend to clean. However, he follows me. At this stage, the center is quiet of customers, and I'm desperately trying to find a way out of the conversation without being rude or upsetting him.
"If you weren't with him, would you be with me?"
"I'd like to travel, actually, Eugene, so probably not."
"I want to travel. When you finish work, we can head off after that."
At this point, I'm in fight or flight mode, and mumble something about working late. Thankfully, a passing customer comes by to ask me about a product, and I move away to serve them. Eugene leaves. After I'm alone again, I call security to tell them what happened, and that I feel extremely uncomfortable. They say next time I see him to call them. I also inform the other staff working in the center what happened. Security walks me to my car that evening, and I get home safely. 2 weeks pass and no sign of Eugene, which is a relief, and I assume he had given up. It was a pretty quiet day on this particular day, so I decided to do some serious cleaning of our shelves. I'm cleaning for about 15 minutes on my knees before I have to grab some more paper towel. I stand up and turn, and directly behind me is Eugene. He was so close that I could feel his breath. Even as I write this, I can feel the same cold shock sweep through my body that I felt on that day. I was freaking terrified. How long had he been behind me watching? Today he was wearing all black. Joggers, t-shirt, and even his runner was black. He had absolutely no walking stick in sight, and he was just staring at me blankly. I had pretty much lost all professionalism at this point, and said to him I will help him after I make a quick phone call. Thankfully, he didn't follow me to my POS station, and as soon as I put the phone to my ear, he strode. Yes, he freaking strode off. Security answered, and were actually right by where he was and escorted him out of the center. At this point, I was just so terrified and shocked that I went and stood by in a neighboring shop, When security came back, he asked me how long I had known him for, and I told him I only knew him as a customer and nothing else. The security guard then said to me the whole time he kept saying,
"She's mine. She's making a mistake. She's going to be with me. She takes the Greyhound bus."
Somehow he knew what freaking bus I took? At this point I just burst into tears, and called my fiancé to come get me and called a girl in another store to take over. Since then, he's only come into the center a couple of times. Each time security will come and inform me and hang around my store until he leaves. So Eugene, let's never, ever freaking meet again.